Good morning, traders. It's E from MarketWizards.com. Just before noon on Saturday, the 4th of March, 2023. Reminding traders to use risk capital you can afford to lose. And unfortunately, I'm sure some people had a rough day yesterday. Rabbit dog days are not easy. And that's one of the first things I learned a long time ago was that the markets can be irrational a lot longer than I care to fight them. And it takes time to learn that idea. So hopefully days like yesterday will keep us in sync with the market. And a reminder, this is one man's opinion. I've been blessed to study a great many traders and different styles and methodologies, come up with my own ideas that make sense for me. They may or may not work for you. And again, a reminder that this is a tricky business. So let's get started with a quick look at a few different charts of different time frames. And this is one of the things I do as a preparation every single day. Before markets, I take a look before I invest any capital. I want to know what all of these charts are saying. And there's others I look at too, but the ones I want to share with you in this video are the primary ones of importance. And then a couple others that really help to round it out. So the first thing we'll note here, this is obviously a daily chart. And this is what I call the 842 trade. And that's because if we look at the low to the high, that's 8 boxes. And if we come back halfway, that would get us to the 50 area, which we hit, and then sunk a tad below and bounced. And in hindsight, it's very obvious that this was a support that held. But at the time in here, you don't know first thing in the morning. Nobody knows. But that's still part of my thought process that we've got to get above this 850 and hold it. And because 875 is a system pivot, I wanted to also get above that and hold that as well. And that gives you a little bit of a bias towards the upside once that happens. And admittedly, this is still basically an inside bar, a little bit lower. And that's the tricky part with these type of trades. And I know a lot of traders have been bearish for a long time, and probably rightfully so. But certainly we're not in my opinion, a bear market right now. We have bounced, so we're still inside last year's low. And in fact, this first high came back up here and hit a 40 back. And that's typically part of the methodology I use, 40, 50, 60. So that's the first thing you want to see, acquire that 40 back and then hold above it. We couldn't do that. We came back, we sunk back, and you can see this marks that 40 back idea. And then we came back and now we're bouncing. And obviously the next important battle, we've gotten above the 125. So now the next battle obviously is this 400 and 125, this yellow circle. So that's part of my methodology. And I use this same approach all the way through my charts, looking at this type of a relationship. So is this a bull flag? Nobody knows. And we won't know. We could even get up here and stall and then come back and keep working our way back. Nobody knows. So we take it one day at a time. And this is the same look, but basically comparing it with the fourth quarter. And you can see we are approaching the fourth quarter high. So this will be an important test. And for now, I'm calling this box right here broken in half. So these are, rather than just going by eighths, I go by the 16ths on this chart. Don't forget the old timers, and I guess I'm an old timer too. And they used to use 30 seconds and 16ths and so on, and then we went decimal. So I like this approach to break it down, to see the half spans as well. And these are things that I will note and throughout the day, sometimes we'll post an idea about these reference points. So we can see this 850 was really important on this relationship. And then we had to get above 987 and hold that. And then the 125 that we just talked about. And then the 262 target that we had right here. And then above that, the good fortune part. So that's putting it into context with the smaller denominations. All right, now here's a monthly chart, and we can see that this was an area that I had mentioned. I'd posted a question a couple days ago. When did you first suspect that perhaps we were bouncing? And there's no right answer I posted, but this was an area that for me confirmed that we were going alongside after a choppy session during the morning, and then started to break towards lunch, and then it started to break out. But this confirmed that we were back into last week's range, and you can see by this line right here that this is the 40 back into last week's range. So that's an important idea that I was looking at as a target, this 308 area, and I thought we might get some chop around that area. And this explains why that was a potential target and why I thought 923 was a very important, got to hold this idea. And now here's a weekly look. And using the same basic principles, we've got that 923 area we talked about. At the time, these proportions are not the same because obviously the high was back here. And then when we took that out, obviously it was lights out yesterday, and the market just continued to run upside after that. Looking at this chart, the most important thing for me to see is this understanding of recapturing that prior week's low, closing strong, and then never coming back under that 12002. Just held tight, pushed, pushed, pushed all the way up, straight up. And these are admittedly very tough days because you're going to get one or two swings that say it's over. But then if they regain it, it keeps on moving. And you have to admit that you're wrong and don't average it and say, well, I'm just wrong by a tick or two. I'm going to hang in there and add a couple. And that's how you get killed. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. So I'm passing that on to you. Hopefully it's something that you will heed. System pivots. This is the heart of the system. It's something that I use, not something I invented. It's just something that I use. It's a wonderful tool to give us market structure. And we know that anything down below this first green box up here, this higher one, that is our base. And below here are extremes. And there will be times that you will take those out and then you need a frame shift. They actually did that on the high side on ES yesterday. So it does happen, and the system just rotates, and there you go with a new setup. So 187.5 is the meat of this system right now in this frame called a frame, and above it going long side, below it going short side. And then you will look and see the different major levels. And you can see where this 343.75 came from, where I posted the end of the day. It may be resistance at the end of the day. And turned out it was. Got a lot closer to it than most people thought, I am sure. So for now, this is the fighting box that needs to be resolved. And then the next one up, 12,500 is the base resistance on this frame, 875 support. And we're going to take it step by step because nobody knows. Here's a 10 Globex. Marvelous chart that just shows the power of a reversal. And because it was a reversal day, I thought the bias should then shift to the long side, and the charts agreed with me. So rather than fight it, you just say, this is one of those days where you need to buy high and sell higher. And if you look back at this whole platform here, you'll see how this was chewing on this line over and then finally regains the slope line and goes up. And that's one of the unique things about moving averages is they will migrate, okay? And they're going to come down and get easier to step over as they mature. And the same thing will happen here. So for now, you've got to respect the rain line as support. The blue line, never even touch this blue line after these first two hits here. So we still are, you've got to break this blue line before you even think about coming down. That's the slope line for now. And it will get easier as this gets higher. But for now, this is obviously still got traders strapped. And a lot of times we'll get at least a 3-day swing, Taylor method. So for now, bias is buying pullbacks and don't get crazy. All right, this is the RTH chart, 5-minute RTH base chart. And we can see this was a gap and go clearly. And it's not to say that you can't take a trade against the trend. And talked with a few traders that were doing that in this 1200 area. And you just have to have the wits about you to say, okay, I'm getting something out of the day, even if that's all you did and made something and said, I don't like this tape, I'm not going to fight it, I don't want to chase it, whatever. You need to at least have a game plan that you will admit to yourself when you're wrong. And I'm talking to myself, and anybody that's willing to listen, good for you. I keep putting this stuff in my mind over and over so that next time I see these situations, I'm prepared. And this was a rabid dog day. And this can be seen as potentially as the inverted head and shoulder, the trap and go, aqueduct trade. And then this never looked back until the end of the day, when certainly you've got to expect somebody's going to want to take profits from a gigantic trade. And certainly that's one of the things that I like to do is say, okay, when are these guys going to take their profits? Even if I was out all day playing golf, came in, I'm going to be thinking, okay, what's the play if I want to play? And you have to keep doing that throughout the day many times. Slope line above it, go along, and you can see where it starts back here. Here was the kicker down here at lunch, and never looked back once it broke out. Obviously, closed the gap and then just kept running into the close. So here's day 2. Just going back to this weekly chart, this area, when I posted at the end of the day that 43, 75, 32s, this was a chart that I was looking at. I keep track of how far have we run. This is almost a 500-point trade. And that's one of the reasons why that came into my mind. All right, they may be shooting for the 500-point trade. You know, the bots rule the world now, and you've got to think like a bot if you want to trade better. So that was one of the things that was in my mind before we go to the last chart, was why I picked that target along with the system pivot at 43.75, that we could get a 500-point trade. And obviously came darn close to it at the end of the day in that last little melt up at the end of the day. Angels and demons. Totally different system. Learned this from Kevin Haggerty at Fidelity. He's no longer with us, but one of the great traders that I learned from, have one of his courses and studied his materials, and he called it signal bar strategy. Used 5-minute bars, as I recall. I use 3-minute bar. I like that better. I think it's just a little more helpful, but still the same principle evolves. And here's your RTH angel. You can see the first bar down is a demon. Then we get the angel to hold, and then we take off. And don't forget, you've got to work around news. It's not just as simple as it looks on a chart. And then we get the pullback, but we can never take out the angel. And then we get the push. Thanks to Anthony Credelli for his idea about using the VWAP. I love this 3 VWAP, and you can see this was supportive. And then we get this little cup right here. And we get holding, and this is lunchtime when normally you would expect to see a contra, but we don't get it. We get the push during lunch. Bang, we get another push up. We get to that 277, 280 area. And then we pull back, and this is when you would expect, okay, maybe it's going to cool off in profits, but we don't. And that's where we need the maturity as a trader to say this is still in a range. They're still not going down. And those other charts we showed, moving averages, show you why. And then we get above that, and we scoot into the afternoon session. And about, I don't know, 5 after 3 or so, it seemed to me, it was that this finally starts to break, and we get the late contra because we never had one. So late contra, and then we hold. And Paulie made a great post to a few of us that this 277 is aggressive support, and he's absolutely right. And that's why, because this is that high that held, and now we broke out above it, and they're still held captive. So at SPZ Trader, great ideas, great team player. And kudos for that post at the end of the day. And we scoot back up. Anybody that thought they had a home run short, you can make a few bucks in here, but then most traders, if you're a day trader, you're coming out. But there's some aggressive day traders that say, hey, I'm already covered, doing nothing. I'm going to buy one last time. And these guys make a killing at the end of the day if they're aggressive. So there's all kinds of ways to play the market. I don't have a crystal ball. Probably you do not either. And we certainly don't take every trade we talk about. Nobody should believe that's true. We just do the best we can to use this as an ATM and hopefully take out more money from the market than we have to donate into that bank. So again, this is E from MarketWizards.com. Thanks for listening. Hope this helps you end your game. And don't forget, just because these are NASDAQ ideas, you can apply this to stocks and the E-mini, S&P, and whatever. Same principles will follow. All right. Be well, everybody.